Let's do a quick chat and follow up about balancing writing with the real life, because what'll end up happening is the one is obviously going to affect the other, and it works in both directions. And I say that because when I am creating, when life intrudes on my creation process, it breaks me out of the creation process. When life is running things, the creation process doesn't get started. And I'll say that kind of tongue-in-cheek because a lot of my best ideas actually come when I'm doing something else, like mowing the lawn or something. But that's a 60-70% of the brain function, and then the rest of the brain can think and stew on some of the fun ideas we're thinking about. So there's 3 sets that you'll run into balancing the writing, the real life, and then the interaction of the two with the ideas for the one is percolating in the other. How do we juggle writing with family? For me, the distractions and the hey-yous that come out of family are part of life, but it's still a distraction. And what had to happen was we had to lay down some ground rules. And it's basically keys clattering fast, don't come barging in too fast. So what ended up happening was you'd get somebody entering the little office domain and requesting something, and it's, do you hear the keys going? And that doesn't take very long. If you've got people who respect your space and respect you as a person, it should be pretty easy to establish those boundaries. I don't want to do the marriage counseling outside of my own little domain, but if you're struggling with that kind of stuff, there may be problems that you want to look into. As far as juggling the writing with work, the writing and the setting up for the writing has been my full-time work for about 24 months. I've been writing since 2010. During that time, I've had the periods of employment, the periods of seeking, etc., like everybody else in a 15-year period. When you're going through the writing and work, you can run into a conflict of interest with the work, because whose time is whose. When you are on the work clock, it's going to depend upon your management, your functions, and in your work environment function. I know for a fact that some of the inspirational writing books that I've listened to, I believe his name was Chris Fox is one of them, but he would do something called writing sprints. And he would do writing sprints in between customer service phone calls. So he didn't have a high impact job with customer facing. He had 5 to 10 minute blocks between phone calls, is how he describes it in his writing books, which is an interesting way of doing it. Doesn't really work too well for me, but it's how he practiced his writing sprints. And that kind of depends on your work environment. If you've got a boss who is death on anything that's not company related during company time, you're going to have perils and risks to that you're going to need to deal with. On the flip side, it takes discipline, because the odds are very strong that you are not going to have the income coming in from your writing until you are established. And that's an obvious statement. But if you have no books published, you're not going to be earning anything from the books that you don't have published. So you have to, at some point, get those written, get that content produced. And some writing pays more than other writing. If you're doing the 8-cent per word contract writing, you're probably not making millions. If you're doing your writing and you're doing like ad copy, where you're being paid buku bucks for something that's a sales letter, and it's a multi-bazillion-dollar sales letter that's moving large ticket items and people are buying it like hotcakes and you're getting a percentage. I think it's Russell Brunson, the ClickFunnels guy, who asks $250,000 to build your funnel, and then he wants a portion of the profit on the back end. So it's like an afternoon is worth millions of dollars to the guy. In the process, his writing, his creation process is so valuable that he is value adding and he's creating money from nothing for you. So when you put that $250,000 in there, if you put $1 million into your pocket for free every year from there on, what is that worth? Was it worth that $250,000? That's a form of writing, but that's also not work. That's like you're actively engaged in making money with something. So at that point, you probably don't need to be holding your regular job. So balancing the work against the writing is one thing. What will end up happening is you will likely find that you are required to be disciplined. And I think it's the Eat the Frog book, where you do the most difficult or the most important things up front in your day. So if you have to wake up at 7 o'clock to be at a 9 o'clock job, set your alarm for 5 o'clock, get your pen and paper out, get your computer turned on, and you sit down and you write for an hour and a half before your alarm for work starts. That may be what you have to do. You commit those 2 hours before everybody's awake. And you have to do that for weeks and months and years to produce your manuscript, to produce your writing. If that's what you have to do, that's what you have to do. And then you've got your other responsibilities, like your day-to-day life and how they interfere with your writing. And to me, that doesn't really impact. I'm the schedule guy. So like, for example, today, I was a little bit off cycle. So I went out and trained in the morning. I was out of the house by 5:15. I trained, practice ended. I had my first appointment, bailed out on me. And then we go and I did house products, and I purchased food, and I got my hair cut, and I'm all pretty. The other responsibilities, like personal and house and food maintenance and stuff like that kind of stuff, you put it on your damn calendar and you work around it, just like everything else in your life. So when you have it on your calendar, when you've got that sort of stuff scheduled out, it's not that too big of a leap to write around it. So I'm going to finish recording video. I'm going to write my post about it. I'm going to post the post about the video. I'm going to post the video, and then I'm going to likely turn around and write in the evening. And that's just how my Wednesdays are scheduled. When we get into how do we time share and the management strategies, for me, I have bigger chunks of time are required for my creative pieces. And I say that because I have to sit still with creative stuff in my head in order to write. I need to know what I'm going to write before I write it. I can't just sit down and start monkey handing the keyboard and expect Shakespeare to show up. I have to know what I'm going to say before I say it. I have to know the beginning to the end. I have to have it drafted. I have to have my writing prompts in place. And once I've got my writing prompts in place, I'm usually pretty good about making the connections and going through and polishing and building out the story. When I can't visualize what I'm going to talk about, I'm stuck. So I need that time and space and that quiet in my own head in order to manage that. So the time management strategy for me is I try to block contiguous amounts of time. The longer the period of time that I can stare at the blank screen, the better. Because if I have the phone coming in, if I have scheduled appointments coming in, it's going to break the day. I say that because if it takes 45 minutes to get into the working and the writing flow, the back end of that is every time you stop, it takes 45 minutes to get back into the writing flow. So if I start at 7 a.m., 45 minutes later, it's 7:45 a.m. I write, and I'm cruising along, and I write till 5 p.m. without getting up. That's a nice long writing block. I'm probably 20,000 words into it at that point. On the flip side, if I start at 7 a.m., 7:45, I've done my preparatory tasks, and I start to write, and then somebody calls me and, hey, use me with something, and it's 8:15. I've barely gotten started, and they're asking some inane question, or they're trying to sell me something, and I was dumb enough to answer the phone. It's 8:15 when I finish that phone call. It's not going to be 9 o'clock because it's taken another 45 minutes to reset for me. And that's pretty common. Once you break out of the writing process, once you break out of your creative flow state, it takes most people 15 to 45 minutes to get back into it. And actually back in where your mind is working and chugging away like you were. And every time somebody interrupts you, it breaks that flow. So in effect, you might do the Office Space thing where in a given week, I might actually do 15 minutes of actual work. And it's just because people just disrespect your time. And that comes down to the time management strategies for you. It also comes into the time management strategies of turning off your notifications, removing social media habits from your life, getting rid of those doofy notifications that make you look away and then make you look away and then make you look away. Because if you're constantly looking away, it's knocking you off your flow state, whether you think it is or not. That's probably the biggest struggle I have. I've got the schedule pretty down. The family is typically respectful of my time and what I'm doing. I'll normally prepare people and let them know what I'm doing so there's less conflict. If there's something that has to get done, we'll plan it out and we'll talk like adults. Honestly, for me, the biggest struggle for me is knocking myself off the writing flow because I'm pretty ruthless with my schedule. As far as improvements go, I have an afternoon commitment today that's pretty short. It'll likely be a non-issue. It'll come and go. Basically, as I'm working on the writing for the post that encompasses this video, that little hour-long block of stuff is not really going to interfere with the production of the post that houses the video. That commitment is coming to an end, and it's not really labor-intensive anymore. So by the end of the month, that commitment's gone. I'm going to take the scheduled block for these videos and the post and move it forward in the week. Because Monday, I have a big block of pay-per-click management. And then I'm thinking that these are going to start happening on Tuesday, so I can put those two together. And then Wednesday through Sunday, I just write. I think that's my biggest struggle right now, is the patience to clear out the calendar. The biggest distraction that I have right now is not so much other people as a mistake that I made in creation of coupon codes for Amazon. It was a technical issue. Basically, I would have to hold inventory in order to maintain a coupon code, and that's the exact opposite of what I wanted to do while I was publishing. So I'm in the process of forcing myself to write a book that I had not wanted to start writing yet. The book was a giveaway that I was eventually going to do, but it wasn't slated for production until I finished all the other publication. I've got something like 9 books that are ready for publication now, and one that's getting pictures put into it. So it's getting ready to turn into 10 books that need publication, and I have to stop all of that and write this lead magnet story, giveaway story for the guardsmen. And I hadn't intended to write it yet. It was a project for later. So I've got an idea of what I want to do, but now it's throwing off the rest of my schedule. And it's not affecting the real life, but the real life and the pacing of the real life is altering how the production of this story is working, because I need the time to basically develop the whole story in my head further and faster than I had intended. So now I'm jammed up a little bit, but that's probably the biggest issue with balancing the writing and the real life right now, and that's a time management. That's a production of my work kind of issue too. So those 2 errors, the misinterpretation of the coupon code, which I was going to use as a stopgap while I wrote this book, and now the coupon code thing is blown up in my face, and now I have to pull the book forward and write the book faster than I anticipated, while I've got all these other things that I don't have the stopgap coupon code for. So yeah, right now the real life is affecting the writing, but it's affecting the writing in unforeseen ways. And that's why you need the slack in the schedule, so that you can adjust to these kind of weird things that pop up and bite you on the nose. But anyway, balancing writing with real life is not terribly difficult. For me, it's mostly takes the planning and cleaning out the brain from all the interference. I don't want a shopping list occupying my brain when I should be thinking about this prequel story to the Guardsmen. That's how I'm peeling the onion at this point. I hope you have a great week.